A voice screams at the battered boy, calling him a failure. He's ordered to hurry up and steal a curse. Pushed to his absolute limit, he makes a choice. He reaches out, his hand glowing with dark power. And in this moment, we learn his name. Crash Valheim. The supposed failure of the legendary Valheim bloodline. His eyes widen with raw, untamed energy. He unleashes his signature ability. Black Hood. A shadowy tendril latches onto its target. A unique skill designed to steal curses. We cut to a different time, a different hero. A man known as Lord Arthur stumbles back from the fight. He's battered, weakened, and barely standing, because his opponent is a literal harbinger of doom, a skeletal knight riding down from a burning sky, its arrival heralded by meteors crashing into the earth. Arthur questions how they could possibly face such a monster. His resolve shatters and his sword falls from his grasp. A call rings out for the party to gather. But they don't rally for a final charge. They rally around their fallen leader. But one voice cuts through the despair, calling out to Arthur. It's Crash Valheim, and he is absolutely furious. Lord Arthur, the hero of this world, simply declares his surrender. He believes all hope is lost and only destruction remains. But Crash can't accept this, questioning his leader's resolve. He reminds Arthur of the countless lives sacrificed to get him here, and then throws a cheap shot about his female companions. But another party member immediately shuts him down. This is Sigrun, a princess who insists Arthur did all he could. She calls Crash nothing but a thief, unworthy of speaking to their hero. Crash scoffs at being called trash. He reminds them how dare they speak to their savior that way, because none of them would have survived without his skill. And he's more than happy to refresh their memories. First up is Isabella, the Red Witch of the Magic Tower, the one who couldn't use magic without her voice, and begged him to steal the curse that silenced her. He notes her dismissive attitude hasn't changed one bit. Next on his list is the Empire's strongest spear, a so-called genius who cried for him to steal every curse she stumbled into, and then he turns to the princess who called him trash after he saved her. He reminds her how her faction targeted him at the academy, how they bullied him relentlessly, and called him a failure who couldn't even fight back. Yet he still endured it all to heal her cursed eyes. Because she was a prophesied hero, and he was just a disgrace. After cleaning up their messes for so long, he asks what it was all for. He tells Arthur that anyone else could have failed, but not him. His voice rings out with the hero's name, and a memory surfaces of someone telling him to lead them instead. A memory of a younger Crash pledging to stay by Arthur's side. He wonders why the hero he looked up to is giving up now. Lord Arthur, his face grim, finally decides to tell him the truth. He explains that this world is already lost and he's going to start over. Crash is stunned, unable to process the words "start over." Arthur reveals this isn't the first time he's seen the world end. His eyes glow red as he names his ultimate skill, regression. And this time, the rest of the party will also go back with their memories. The horrifying implication dawns on Crash. If they all start over with their experience, their chance of victory is absolute. Lord Arthur confirms he will only take the other three back to the beginning. Crash Valheim, utterly bewildered, questions his own fate. A chilling smirk plays on Lord Arthur's lips as he prepares his next words. He coldly declares that Crash Valheim is simply not needed for the new beginning. Crash's face contorts in a mixture of shock and profound hurt. Lord Arthur acknowledges Black Hood's power, capable of stealing even unbreakable curses. He explains that while Crash's skill has uses, his current broken state is a liability. The hero questions the point of bringing back a version of Crash so damaged and ruined. Instead, he suggests it would be more efficient to take a fresh, untouched Crash from the past. Crash Valheim's eyes widen in horror, realizing he is seen as nothing more than a disposable tool. Arthur admits this was his plan all along, promising to use and discard the next Crash too. He gives a final, chilling farewell to the boy he's leaving behind. Crash stumbles forward, desperately trying to make them wait. He reaches out as the others walk away, a painful truth dawning on him. He realizes Arthur never saw him as a true companion. In a final, desperate plea, he screams for them to take him, but the curses he absorbed are finally overwhelming his body. His life is set to end even before the apocalypse does, but with his last ounce of will, he refuses to accept this fate. Because Black Hood can steal more than just curses, it can steal skills. But with his last breath, he decides it's worth a shot, as Lord Arthur begins to activate his regression skill, bathing the dying world in a final golden light. Crash unleashes Black Hood, aiming to steal that very power. But something unexpected happens, leaving him stunned. His shadowy tendril doesn't just grab Arthur. It transfers the curse markings directly onto the hero's arm. Arthur looks down with a weary smile, asking if Crash will ever give up. He reveals that he has experienced countless destructions, and in every single one, he left a version of Crash behind to die. But Arthur declares that this time, he's the one being left behind. A broken, bloody smile spreads across Crash Valheim's face. He points a single finger at the harbinger of doom above, and reminds the hero of his own grim prophecy for this world. The realization of Crash's plan hits Arthur like a physical blow. His eyes widen in absolute horror. As the weight of his own failure crashes down on him, Crash declares that if Arthur won't save this world, then he will be the one to save the next one. With that final vow, Crash Valheim's eyes finally close, and then a single eye flutters open. Snapping awake with a jolt of confusion, a silent scream escapes him as he stares at a familiar ceiling. His mind races, trying to process his surroundings. He looks around the opulent, sunlit room and realizes this is his childhood home. A system window confirms it. Regression complete. He's 15 again. And with his return, memories of this world's plight flood his mind. He recalls the erosion zones, where reality itself is rewritten, and the monstrous species that invade from other dimensions. Among these invaders are humanoid monsters, who are known as the World Invaders. But there are those who stand against this erosion, wielding powerful artifacts and magic, a group of heroes called the Azure Generation, and Crash remembers his own place among them. A boy whose only skill was to absorb curses for the team. He was treated as a living trash can, then betrayed. The memories of that miserable life are still so fresh. He sits up with a gasp, the nightmare all too real. He takes in the familiar, opulent details of his room. He remembers the dead of winter just moments ago, but now he's back in his childhood home in the middle of summer. He recalls his last desperate gamble, using Black Hood to steal Arthur's regression skill. The impossible success of his plan leaves him stunned. He questions how it was even possible. Most people assume Black Hood is a skill without any restrictions, but the truth is it has one very obvious flaw. It can only steal a target if it can bypass the lock generated upon activation. The strength of that lock is determined by the owner's perceived value. So a pet rock could require 99% of the world's wealth to steal. This means that skills which are highly valued by their users should have been the most difficult things to take. But when it came to Lord Arthur's regression skill, Crash remembers seeing no lock at all. He questions how that could even be possible. The only explanation is that Arthur wanted to abandon it. The Hero King, the man who had seen the world end so many times, had grown to despise the very power that defined him. Crash recalls the hero's exhausted expression. He realizes that repeating the world's end all alone had turned regression into Arthur's personal curse. That's why he tried to bring the others back with him. But every single time he left Crash out of the plan, and the fact that Black Hood worked is all the proof he needs. The Arthur he knew was left behind in that dying world, to be erased by the very apocalypse he fled from. Crash smirks, thinking he did the hero a favor. He remembers how they always left him behind. They acted as if absorbing curses was just his job, never once caring about the companions suffering for them. He remembers the endless, mind-shattering agony, and with a smirk, he thinks Arthur got exactly what he deserved. Now back in his family home, he checks his reflection in the mirror. He's around 10 years old again, but his body is already toned. The result of endless training to survive in the ruthless Valheim house. Being in this specific hall tells him he's returned to a time just after a key event. The Valheim family's proving ceremony, where children demonstrate their new skills. A ceremony where a child's worth is tied to the power they receive. In the Valheim family, direct descendants were always prized, but Crash was the exception. Born with no talent, no strength, and chosen by no one. After that humiliating ceremony, he was kicked out of the main house and sent to the Blue Pine Hall, a place for the family's castaways. He now holds the title of the biggest failure in Valheim history. Yet he's the only one who knows the world is doomed, an apocalypse that even the legendary Azure Generation couldn't stop. He wonders if he could possibly change that fate. Could a failure like him prevent the world's destruction? He places a hand on the glass, feeling the familiar dark power within. He clenches his fist, telling himself not to be a coward. Because this isn't about choice. If the world ends, he dies with it. With a grim smile, he accepts that there's no other path. And he knows exactly what the first step to saving the world is. Just then, a voice calls out to the young master. It's Ariad, the butler, and Crash realizes he's still alive in this timeline. For a moment, he's just a child again, happy to see a familiar face. This was the man who cared for him when no one else would. But the memory of the future cuts through the warmth with a chilling question. When does Ariad plan to use the poison his brother gave him? Crash's mind replays the chilling truth. This man, Ariad, poisoned him at 14, teaching him betrayal. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a dynamic display of combat. as a fierce warrior effortlessly dispatches multiple opponents. The young woman, surrounded by crackling blue and purple energy, stands victorious as onlookers watch from above. Spectators express their shock, marveling that the knights couldn't even touch this powerful 15-year-old. Charlotte Valheim, Crash's half-sister and a proclaimed sword saint, finds her overwhelming victory quite dull. The onlookers continue to praise her as a once-in-a-millennium prodigy, the family head's greatest hope. Another figure, Verokin Valheim, Crash's half-brother, listens to the praise for the genius who will save their bloodline. Verokin's eyes burn with a dark fury as he internally vows to wipe out that entire bloodline. He considers Charlotte too formidable to target, noting her powerful mother as well. With a chilling smirk, Verokin decides to start by eliminating the useless failure. Our boy Crash, of course. We see Verokin laying out his manipulative plan for Ariad. He claims Crash is the only thing blocking the butler's future, and offers a simple, sinister solution in a shimmering bottle. But Ariad hesitates, viewing Crash as his own son. Verokin's patience clearly begins to wear thin. He forces an impossible choice. Crash's life or his daughter's? The butler's resolve crumbles under the weight of the decision. But in the end, his answer is a firm no. Instead of poisoning the boy, he turns a blade on himself. A horrified young Crash can only watch, screaming his name. With his last breath, Ariad apologizes to the young master. He reaches out to the crying boy, telling him he was like a son, and then his hand falls limp, his life slipping away. Crash is left alone with the body, questioning what he's done. But the memory clarifies that Ariad, unable to bear the guilt, took the poison himself. Back in the present, Crash confronts the butler, accusing him of the planned betrayal. He asks Ariad if he really thought he could keep it a secret. But Crash stops himself, realizing he might push the man to the edge again. Instead, he tells Ariad that it wasn't his fault because if Crash wasn't a failure, the order would never have been given. The butler is stunned, having expected a very different reaction from the boy. Crash's expression hardens with newfound resolve. He offers his hand, telling the butler to simply follow him. He leads the way into a massive, ornate library. Ariad follows, confused by the sudden visit to the study. Crash then gives a truly bizarre order, cut through the wall. He even teases that for a Valheim butler, it should be easy. Without another word, the butler steps forward to obey. He draws his blade, which hums with a dark, powerful energy, a weapon clearly meant for more than just serving tea. And with a single fluid motion, he unleashes its power. The wall falls away in one clean piece, revealing a dark passage. Ariad is stunned to find a secret corridor hidden in plain sight. He watches Crash walk ahead, a thought forming in his mind. The butler notes the boy's sudden, drastic change in demeanor. At the end of the hall, Crash finds a heavily chained and locked door. A strange wave of nostalgia washes over him. He remembers a time when this place was nothing but ash. But this time, he's arrived before the destruction. Ariad offers to cut the chains, but Crash calmly stops him, because this is a test for his own power. With a grin, he unleashes his signature skill, Black Hood. Shadowy tendrils, each with a hungry maw, lash out at the door. The ancient chains and lock are instantly devoured and shattered. Crash casually catches a piece, much to the butler's flabbergasted horror. Ariad asks in awe if the young master has made a contract with a lord. Crash realizes that in the original timeline, he hadn't done this yet. He brushes it off, claiming a contract with some insignificant power. The butler is completely stunned by this sudden, drastic change. He remembers how, just yesterday, the young master's eyes were empty of life. Now he's convinced the boy has obtained an incredible new skill overnight. Ariad realizes that Crash shares the bloodline of a genius, and a fierce loyalty begins to take root. He turns to Crash, addressing him as young master, and pledges to keep this secret until the very end. Crash is taken aback by this sudden shift in loyalty. He realizes this must be the flaw of regression. Because he's changed the past, the future is changing with it. But the memory of the butler who betrayed him still lingers. He wonders if this is why Arthur hated regression, and then forms a new plan. He'll start by turning the butler into his very first pawn. Crash dismisses the butler's loyalty, saying he'll deal with his daughter later. For now, he declares that the secret library is their top priority. The heavy doors swing open, revealing a blinding light from within. Crash's eyes widen in shock at what he sees. A torrent of raw, untamed energy erupts from the room, blasting him with an overwhelming pressure. He recognizes this feeling. After absorbing countless curses, this power is unmistakable. He knows that somewhere in this room is the grimoire he's been searching for, and with a triumphant thought, he spots his target. This is the Blue Pine Hall's secret library, where the family's failures recorded their forbidden knowledge. a place where mastery was achieved through human effort, not innate skills. This library was once open to everyone until one person made it a secret. That person was Damaris Valheim, known as the worst failure in the family's history. But he also became the strongest after being consumed by the world erosion. He embraced the very power that should have destroyed him. And this is the grimoire he left behind. The legacy of Damaris Valheim, the family's greatest failure and its strongest warrior. At the peak of his power, even the world's strongest heroes challenged him. A man who could literally crush the world's power in his hand. No matter who stood against him, no one could stop his rampage. He used a forbidden technique known as extreme blood immersion, a secret art of taking the world erosion into his own body and wielding it. Crash recalls that in his past life, half this book was burned. He remembers the agony of absorbing those curses himself, how he used Blackhood to weaken them, then offset them with others, and a brilliant, dangerous idea begins to form in his mind. If he can find two opposing forces and make them fight, then he too can become just as strong as the legend before him. He holds the raw power of the grimoire in his hands. Crash turns to Ariad, his plan already in motion, and gives a simple, direct order. Seal off the Blue Pine Hall. The butler walks away, ready to carry out his master's will. He decides that Crash's mercy must be repaid with absolute loyalty, because the young master is the only one he will serve now. Elsewhere, Verokin doesn't take the rejection well at all. He rages at the butler's foolish choice to protect the family's trash. His hatred burns for both the celebrated genius and the failure, blaming Charlotte's mother for usurping his place in the family line. Verokin's expression hardens with cold fury. He grits his teeth, unable to accept this outcome. He screams for one of his subordinates to appear, and orders him to find out why the butler suddenly changed his mind. But the man returns with an unexpected report. They can't enter. Ariad has sealed the Blue Pine Hall, denying access to everyone. Verokin is stunned by this blatant act of defiance. He curses the arrogant failure, completely unaware of what's happening inside. Crash is deep in meditation, channeling the grimoire's dark power. He clenches his fist, wondering if he's finally reached the next level. He considers the different realms of aura mastery. The second stage, Aura Expert, is the line between the ordinary and the gifted. He's only at an average level, while his sister Charlotte is already a near master. But he remembers that even that monstrous prodigy was powerless when faced with the end of the world. He wonders how he can possibly succeed where she failed. The weight of his mission settles heavily on his young shoulders. But he decides he won't know unless he tries. After all, this time he isn't burdened by the curses he once held. And he has the grimoire, a legacy of failures just like him. He knows that with this new path, he can become so much stronger, strong enough to wield a power that could change everything. But for now, he decides this is enough progress for one day. Ariad is already there to congratulate him on reaching the expert realm. Crash casually dismisses the praise, taking the offered towel. More importantly, he asks why the butler was waiting for him. Ariad informs him that his fiancée, Lady Bianca, has arrived. The name alone is enough to make Crash freeze in place, because he knows her by a different title. Bianca the White Demon, the future mastermind who sides with the invaders to destroy the world. He remembers their engagement was nothing more than a political marriage, a way for his family to discard a failure and gain a powerful ally. He knew that both of them were just pawns in their family's games, but he had business with Bianca anyway, making her arrival quite convenient. We learn about Bianca Hardenhearts, whose mother was afflicted by a world erosion curse. As a result, Bianca was born with a curse of her own, a curse called Snowdoll, which left her completely emotionless. It was a curse that reached the soul, impossible for anyone to break. Born at the cost of her mother's life, she was treated with cold disdain. The Hardenhearts family saw her as nothing but a cursed child. He wonders if Bianca ever truly hated him. But he hopes stealing her curse won't be a problem, because her curse is the key to controlling the grimoire's power. He realizes his current attire isn't exactly fit for a guest. He agrees, telling the butler to hurry. He orders Ariad to show her in and have her wait inside. A memory surfaces of their last meeting 5 months ago. He had angrily told her to go home, accusing her of only wanting the Valheim family's power, and she had left without a single word. Bianca sits with a blank expression, admitting she didn't want to be there. A memory surfaces of her father's cold instructions. He told her the Hardenhearts family's survival depended on Valheim, and that her only value was her face, used to win over their son. He grips her chin, reminding her of her name and her duty. The weight of her entire family rests on her young shoulders. She thinks back to the pessimistic, sharp-tongued loser she's engaged to, and if not for her family's political maneuvering, she would have been the one to say no. He enters the room, his expression suddenly shifting. and with a smile, he suggests they take a walk in the garden. He even orders Ariad to prepare her favorite cookies. He says it's good to spend time together since they're engaged. He's laying on the charm pretty thick for a guy who was a walking ball of angst, but Bianca's expression remains as cold and stiff as ever. She notes his complete change in personality and how he knew about the cookies. Out in the garden, Crash comments on the peaceful atmosphere, but Bianca finally cuts through the pleasantries, asking if he's really Crash. Her eyes are filled with suspicion and confusion. Crash simply turns to her with a calm, knowing smile. He lets out a soft sigh and asks if he really seems that different from before, but she's taken aback, sensing a dangerous aura from him. She immediately apologizes, but Crash realizes he's come on too strong. His memories of this specific time are hazy, but he can never forget the look on her face. The same empty expression she wore the day she died in his past life. He decides to play it cool, explaining he recently made a contract with a god. She accepts this explanation, even offering her congratulations. And with that, he tells her he has a proposal for her. She questions why someone who just made a divine contract would have a proposal for her. Crash immediately jumps to the worst conclusion. She wants to break the engagement. He even says he'd understand, given his past self's reputation. But his self-deprecation only seems to annoy her. She declares that she is his fiancée, and that fact will not change. Crash is stunned, having never expected to hear such words from her. He quickly recovers and gets back to the main point of their meeting. With his newfound power, he declares that he wants her snow doll curse. Bianca is shocked, remembering how even the best curse breakers failed to remove it. He confirms he'll take it himself, offering her any wish in return. She theorizes that his family's scorn has broken him, and that the constant pressure has worn him down completely. She looks at him with pity, wondering if he's finally lost his marbles. A memory surfaces of a psychic mage's warning about how those on the verge of collapse might act erratically. A warning to stay by the side of anyone showing these signs. So she reaches out and gently takes his hand. She tries to reassure him, telling him he can overcome this. Crash is left utterly bewildered by this sudden turn of events. She even vows to visit more often, leaving Crash to question everything. She insists she can't abandon someone standing on the edge. He knows Bianca is the type to charge straight ahead, but she's completely misunderstood the situation. So, if she won't give up the curse willingly, he decides to just test his skill on her. He prepares to unleash his signature ability, Black Hood. Dark, shadowy energy gathers in his hands, but a system window suddenly appears, generating an unlock condition. His power is blocked by a strange purple barrier. The first condition to steal her curse, become Bianca's friend. He realizes the curse has a double lock, likely because it's been a part of her since birth. And becoming friends with an emotionless girl is a lot harder than just being her fiancé. He knows sending her back will only hasten her fall into darkness. But if he can stop her from becoming the White Demon and get her curse, he decides to play along, telling her he's happy she'll visit more. Bianca agrees to return soon after speaking with her father. As she leaves, Crash plans to study the grimoires until her return. But the very next day, a carriage arrives at Blue Pine Hall. Crash watches as workers unload crates and luggage. A familiar voice calls out his name, catching him off guard. It's Bianca, announcing she'll be living with him from now on. Crash is utterly stunned by this unexpected turn of events. Sometime later, Crash wakes to find Bianca sleeping soundly beside him. He sits up, wondering why she's in his bed yet again, and worries that someone might get the wrong idea about their living situation. She greets him good morning as he questions her very presence. We see that months have passed, with Crash training relentlessly. He reflects on how long it's been since Bianca moved in. He remembers his shock when she confirmed her family had approved it. He'd been worried about her being so far from home at just 12 years old. But he realizes her curse means she feels little attachment to them anyway. And as they walk together, he thinks this might actually help him become her friend. He reflects that all of this started in the summer, but now winter has arrived. Soon he'll be old enough for Laheln Academy, a school for the world's future heroes. He remembers it as the place that produced the Azure generation and their overpowered skills. The very thought of those so-called heroes fills him with a burning rage. Because this time, he knows all their weaknesses and plans to steal every single one of their skills. He'll be 14 next year, giving him about a year to prepare for his grand entrance. But to do that, he needs to get much, much stronger. And he can already feel his natural talent hitting a wall. The grimoires have taken him as far as they can, to the beginner stage of Aura Expert. To break through that limit, he needs Bianca's Snow Doll curse and the forbidden power it can unlock. Crash finds Bianca waiting for him after another long day of training. She insists she can't leave him by himself, ever since summer began. He thinks about how she follows him everywhere, a little too closely for comfort, and he wonders how long it will take to finally become her friend. He decides to try a different approach, suggesting they go out for fun. But Ariad interrupts with news of an invitation from the Star Sanctuary, a formal gathering for the kingdom's young nobles to build connections. Crash thanks the butler for the reminder, holding the formal letter. He recalls that in his past life, he shut himself away and never attended. But this time, things are going to be very different. He knows his brother will be there, but he must go to keep his promise to Ariad and prevent the butler from repeating his past tragedy. Crash confirms he'll attend, and Bianca immediately chimes in that she's going too. Ariad warns him that the other nobles will surely look down on him. Crash turns to Bianca, suggesting she might want to stay behind to avoid their judgment. But she refuses, insisting she will go with him. She declares it's her duty as his fiancée to protect him, much to Crash's surprise. He tries to clarify that he was asking for her opinion as a person, not as his fiancée. But all he gets in return is that same look of pity he's come to recognize. Bianca recalls how kind he's been these past few months, from sharing meals to reading together, and even offering a shoulder to rest on. It's a warmth she's never felt before, especially not from her own family. She thinks about how his kindness has overshadowed their terrible first meeting, and so she declares she'll go with him, not as his fiancée, but as herself. Crash is completely floored by this unexpected show of personal loyalty. A small, satisfied smile spreads across his face. Soon their carriage arrives at the stunning Star Dragon Pavilion. He marvels at the sheer wealth on display, while Bianca sleeps on his lap. He remembers that nobles are meant to be respected for fighting the world erosion, but these fools just party all night, calling themselves the future of the kingdom. The two of them step onto the red carpet, ready to face the crowd, and their arrival is announced for all the other young nobles to hear. The whispers start immediately, calling Crash a failure and Bianca a cursed beauty. He glares at the crowd, surrounded by what he calls fake nobles. But his arrival has caught the attention of one particular guest, because among the fakes, there are some very real players in the room. Balak Hogma, Kasagi Elfin Amelia, and Anix Greiser, a trio who would one day be known as Cerberus's Triad. Crash knows their interest isn't in him personally. It's all because of his sister, Charlotte, who once bragged about her own prowess here. He remembers her calling the Star Sanctuary a trash sanctuary after her easy victory. A memory of his younger self cowering before her overwhelming confidence. And judging by the mood, she's already made quite the scene this time around. Bianca gently tugs on his sleeve, sensing his tension. She tells him to ignore the whispers of the crowd. But Crash just pats her head, noting she's the one being insulted. He then asks when the person he's waiting for will arrive. He wonders if his target is even going to show up. But right on cue, an announcer calls out a ridiculous name. A flamboyant young man makes a grand, sparkling entrance. This is the flashy alchemist, Lord Darling Danforlion. Crash recalls a memory of this man seeing him at his absolute worst, and reaching out a hand to the curse-ridden boy. The memory shows the alchemist examining the curses on his body. He eagerly asks the battered Crash to be his test subject. With Crash too weak to respond, he decides to just start anyway. Our boy can only stare back in absolute horror. He tries to tell the alchemist to stop as he leans in closer. Crash shoves him away, calling him a maniac. This was his first meeting with the man who would become the Alchemy King. Back in the present, Danforlion's arrival causes quite a stir among the nobles. Crash smirks, knowing a show-off like him would never miss this. He tells Bianca to wait as he and other boys rush forward with flowers. With her mouth full, Bianca gives a muffled okay, but as Crash walks forward, he catches Danforlion's eye. The alchemist feels a strange sense of familiarity. He notes the boy's resemblance to the infamous Charlotte. His eyes light up, asking if Crash is her little brother. He asks if Crash needs something, or is just admiring his beauty. But then he gets to the real point. The world invaders? Crash smirks, asking if the topic has caught his interest. The alchemist calls him a cocky kid for his direct approach, and warns him to be ready for the consequences of getting his attention. The alchemist casually asks Crash for his age. Crash holds up his fingers, forming the number. He confirms he's 13, shocking Danforlion with his mature attitude. But Crash insists they get to the point, claiming he's in a hurry. Danforlion grins, telling him to go right ahead. And then he suddenly tosses a sword right at Crash. Our boy's eyes widen in absolute shock. He barely manages to parry a second lightning-fast strike. The alchemist swings again, his face lit with a manic glee. He happily explains he just had to test Charlotte's brother's skills. Crash grits his teeth, thinking this is a real pain. The alchemist taunts him, asking if he still wants to talk. But Crash holds his ground, his eyes burning with focus. Danforlion is genuinely surprised, questioning the rumors of him being a failure. Their blades lock as Crash reveals he trains relentlessly, and then he drops the bombshell. He can help with curse neutralization. Danforlion scoffs, wondering what a kid could possibly know about alchemy. Crash's gaze remains steady, unwavering under the pressure. He plants his feet, refusing to be pushed back an inch. The alchemist's expression sours, clearly not enjoying this stalemate. He reveals he knows about the alchemist's secret research, and that he needs to prove his theory to advance his career. Danforlion lowers his sword, completely caught off guard. Crash then makes his offer. He'll help with that research. He unleashes his aura, revealing his curse-stealing skill and shocking the alchemist. The gears in Danforlion's mind begin to turn rapidly. He realizes this is the perfect chance to prove everything, and asks what Crash wants in return. After a truly bizarre guess, Crash clarifies he needs a potion to suppress the curses he'll be taking. Crash knows that simply stealing skills won't be enough, because even the legendary Azure generation failed to stop the apocalypse. Crash explains that a failure like him has to try every possible method. Danforlion notes that the rumors of him being a broken failure were clearly wrong. He thinks about the Valheim siblings, one a genius, the other a stubborn misfit. The alchemist seems completely taken with this newfound determination. He then asks Crash a very important question. He wants to know if Crash will be attending Lahelny Academy. With a confident smirk, Crash confirms that he will be there. After all, the academy is full of skills just waiting to be stolen. Danforlion is overjoyed, promising to make any potion he needs. But Crash isn't done yet. He has one more favor to ask. He asks Danforlion about a fatal illness called discoloration disease, and then casually asks him to create a cure for it. The alchemist is stunned, reminding him the disease is incurable. But Crash's expression remains completely unfazed. He holds up a fist, a gesture of unwavering belief, and tells the future alchemy king that he can do it. A confident smirk spreads across Danforlion's face, his pride now challenged. The two boys seal their new partnership with a fist bump. Danforlion eagerly agrees to deliver the results to him personally. But as their meeting ends, Crash feels a lingering sense of unease. He recalls a past conversation with the alchemist, asking if he has a crush on his sister, Charlotte. Danforlion plays coy, wondering why Crash is so interested in his love life. And then he leans in with a shocking confession about his preferences. A revelation that completely short-circuits Crash's brain. He immediately bolts with the alchemist calling after his future boyfriend. But Crash stops, remembering this was just Danforlion's usual brand of chaos. He turns his attention back to the crowded ballroom. His expression hardens, the brief moment of levity now gone. Because he spots someone roughly grabbing Bianca's arm, a grip far too tight to be friendly. Bianca's eyes widen as she calls out his name, and in a flash, Crash delivers a brutal right hook. The force of the blow sends the man flying backward. He groans in pain as Crash coldly asks if he was trying to drag his fiancée away. A dark aura surrounds our boy as he demands to know what the hell he was doing. The man panics, while Crash points out he was getting rough with a 12-year-old girl. Crash then makes a very pointed and very public accusation. The man frantically denies it, claiming he was just following Lady Claudia's orders. The name catches Crash completely off guard, recognizing it as the second princess. The man explains he was ordered to bring Bianca and used force when she resisted. Crash glances back at Bianca, who looks nervous. He knows she's looked down on by other nobles because of her curse. So why would a princess who keeps to her own circle suddenly summon her? Crash knows that something about this situation doesn't add up. He searches his memory, knowing there has to be another connection he's forgetting. And then it hits him with a jolt of recognition. He remembers wood archer Annex, a man obsessed with his sister Charlotte. After being humiliated by her, his admiration twisted into a dangerous obsession. And since he could never beat the sister, he decided to target her failure of a brother instead. A bitter laugh escapes Crash as the pieces click into place. He realizes Annex is now dragging Bianca into his pathetic scheme. He tells the stunned subordinate that he'll go, but not to see the princess, he's going to see Annex directly. He calls the man a fool for not knowing who was pulling the strings. He takes Bianca's hand, telling her it's time to leave, and the two of them walk away from the scene. He then asks Bianca why she refused to go with the man. A memory surfaces of a couple, perhaps representing her fear of abandonment. She admits she thought he would leave her behind, but he didn't. She explains it was because he told her to wait for him. Crash is completely taken aback by her simple loyalty. A small, satisfied smile spreads across his face. He pats her head, telling her she did well. They arrive at a private room where a new face greets them. A boy with feline features and a smug grin. He welcomes Crash, who states he's here to see Annex. The boy confirms Annex was expecting him and told him to let Crash pass. Crash recognizes him as Balak Hogma, the Tiger Youth, a talented but unpredictable fighter he'd rather avoid. Balak opens the door but then stops with a mischievous thought. He suddenly gets in Crash's face, demanding a fight. He argues that since he fought Charlotte here, fighting her weaker brother should be fine. A purple aura erupts around him as Crash notes his unpredictable combat style. Our boy really wanted to avoid a fight before meeting his real target. But the battle-hungry look in Balak's eyes says that's not an option. With a grim resolve, Crash clenches his fist and accepts the challenge. Balak immediately lunges forward with a powerful aura-charged strike. But Crash ducks under the blow with practiced ease. He pivots on his heel, smoothly dodging the attack, and counters with a brutal kick of his own. His eyes burn with a cold, focused intensity as he drives his heel straight into Balak's gut. The Tiger Youth is sent sprawling across the floor. Crash stands over him, not letting his guard down for a second, but Balak just laughs, impressed by the force of the blow. Crash reminds him that he was the one who started this fight. The battle-hungry kid is already eager for round 2, asking to use his weapon, but Crash questions if he's even in a condition to continue. A savage grin is the only answer he needs. Balak looks up from the floor, completely stunned by the reversal. Crash stands over him, not even breaking a sweat. Bianca asks what he just did, and he calls it a secret Valheim technique, a move called Short Strike, designed to bypass armor and strike organs. He recalls it was the only technique he managed to save, before the Blue Pine Hall was destroyed in his past life. He explains it's his most reliable move, one that's saved him countless times. He assures her Balak won't be getting up for a while. The doors swing open to reveal Anix and Kasagi on the balcony. They look past him, surprised to see their guard is down. Anix admits he's surprised that Crash managed to defeat Balak. Crash questions if that wasn't the whole point of his plan. He says since Anix used the princess as bait, he decided to show up. Anix is intrigued, noting Crash is nothing like the rumors suggested. Crash confirms the rumor about him being a failure is absolutely true, but he declares that after he beats Anix today, those rumors are going to change because he's taking his skill. He repeats his vow, confident that a victory here will rewrite his story. Anix just smirks as Crash identifies his old comrade, Anix Greiser. He remembers their shared past, from the Academy to the Azure generation. He remembers getting to know Anix all too well, and the only reason Anix found him useful was for moments like this, a memory of a mission gone wrong with everyone down. Crash calls out to his comrade for help, but Anix reveals he led them into this trap, and if he's the only one left, no one will ever know. Crash refuses to let him get away with it, but Anix just smiles, his plan already set. He'll simply blame the entire failure on Crash. After all, everyone already hates him, so who would question it? Anix mockingly thanks Crash for being his friend until the end. The word echoes in Crash's mind, a bitter, unbelievable lie. He screams back, questioning if Anix ever truly saw him as one. He accuses Anix of only using him to get close to his sister, Charlotte. Anix coldly admits that's precisely why he can't stand him. He calls Crash a skillless failure who's only good at twisting words. He declares their association over once Charlotte is finally married. He turns back, deciding this outcome is for the best. A twisted smile spreads across his face as Crash's strength fades. His hand falls limp, the memory of betrayal burning in his mind. He remembers the despair of that final moment. But it was Arthur who saved him from that fall, bringing him onto the team. And that, he recalls, was the start of his next great misfortune. He remembers how Anix was eventually exposed and kicked out of the hero party. Anix smirks, noting how much Crash talks and how much he looks like Charlotte. The comparison makes Crash's blood boil, proving some things never change. He steps forward, warning Anix not to speak his sister's name so lightly. A dark aura erupts around him as he prepares for a fight. He declares that a fight will show the true difference between them. Anix just watches with a condescending, confident smile. Anix immediately lunges forward, striking down with a wooden tendril. He uses it as a springboard to launch himself into the air, and dives straight down toward a completely unfazed Crash. But our boy blocks the attack with a single arm. The wooden blade shatters against his hardened defense. With a simple twist, he sends Anix flying through the air. The young noble crashes to the ground as dark tendrils erupt around him, but he recovers quickly, landing on his feet with a scowl. He admits that Crash is just as troublesome as he remembers, and unleashes his family's secret technique, the Wood Heaven style. A unique technique that strengthens and controls plant life with aura. Anix taunts him, asking if he really plans to use a weapon. Crash smirks, retorting that he'll fight Anix's plants with his own. His opponent's expression darkens with a condescending sneer. He challenges Crash to block the next strike with his wooden branches. But Crash doesn't block. He dodges with impossible agility. Annex is left completely stunned, questioning how he moved so fast. He scoffs that maybe Charlotte could do that, but not a failure like him. Crash's smirk widens as he calls himself Annex's natural enemy, because he's seen these abilities countless times before the regression. Annex taunts him, asking if he's still obsessed with Charlotte. He warns Crash not to push his luck any further. But our boy simply stands his ground, unimpressed. Annex leaps between his wooden constructs, gaining height. He unleashes his family's fifth form, summoning a massive wooden titan from the floor. A confident smirk spreads across his face as he calls out its name. Kasagi screams for him to stop, realizing this has gone too far. Even Balak knows that a direct hit from that would be more than enough to end Crash's life. But Crash remains perfectly calm, his eyes closed. He recalls a thin grimoire from the Blue Pine Hall's library. It was written by an ancestor with no talent, who simply practiced every day. The book described a state of unity between the user and their blade. And thanks to the endless agony of the curses, Crash finally understands its secret. He holds up a simple wooden branch, declaring that he and the sword are one, and with that, he brings it down, cleaving the wooden titan in two. A simple, profound truth that unleashes an unstoppable force. Kasagi and Bianca can only stare in absolute stunned silence, and Annex's face contorts in horror, his ultimate move utterly shattered. Crash stands over the defeated Annex, his shadow looming. He gives him a final, chilling warning to never get cocky again. With the battle won, Crash turns away from his fallen rival. But the victory has clearly taken a heavy toll on him. He realizes he went all out with that last strike, and now he can barely move. His body is completely spent, unable to even stand properly. Bianca rushes forward, catching him just before he can fall. But her grip is a little too tight for his exhausted body. Kasagi watches the scene, worried Bianca might accidentally finish him off. So she steps in, hoisting our boy over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes. The crowd is stunned that the Valheim failure just beat Annex. Kasagi notes that the rumors are already spreading like wildfire. She thinks he's either bold or just reckless, but when he wakes up, he'll be famous. But something about the fight still bothers her. It's the look on Annex's face, and she feels he's already planning something.
It's Dan for Lion, telling Crash not to die before helping with his research.
A week passes and Crash is back to his relentless training. It's been 7 days since the incident at the Star Sanctuary. He's finally recovered from the strain of that final attack. He knows if he'd pushed any harder, he would have ended up worse than Annex, recalling he was unconscious the entire ride home. He's annoyed that he passed out, missing a golden opportunity to steal the skill. He recalls the 2 methods he has for skill theft. One is to break the lock, the other is to make the target doubt their own power. He knows that when his strike shattered the wood titan, the seeds of doubt were planted deep in Annex's mind. It will take time, but eventually that skill will be his. So in the year before the academy, he must train relentlessly to surpass the geniuses. But Ariad is waiting for him with an important message. His half-brother, Lord Verikan, has arrived at Blue Pine Hall. After ignoring his messages twice, Crash finally agrees to see him. Bianca offers him some water after his intense training session, but she immediately recoils, pointing out that he smells sweaty. Crash sniffs his shirt, wondering if it's a side effect of his aura. He decides not to freshen up since he'll be leaving soon anyway. Bianca tells him to keep his distance, and Crash is playfully shocked by her boldness. He teases her for getting so brave all of a sudden. As she walks away, he playfully chases after her. He smiles, thinking that her stubbornness is one of her strengths. He reflects that the people from his past life would be staring coldly at this display, especially a certain blonde-haired figure with glowing red eyes. A memory of Arthur's voice taunts him, asking if he's gone soft. He thinks back to the hero he once looked up to, and admits that until the very end, Arthur was a vigilant hero. He wonders what that hero is doing now, probably flirting with his fiancée. This is Verokin Valheim, his half-brother, who doesn't look pleased. Verokin sarcastically notes that even heroes need a break. He points out that the boy who once feared him is now staring back with confidence. He then asks if the rumor about him defeating Annex is true. Crash retorts that he's surprised his busy brother even has time to visit. Verokin warns him that the academy is changing its rules and he'd better prepare. Verokin is stunned, wondering if Crash is mocking him. He scoffs, reminding Crash of the Valheim family's immense power. He tells Crash not to get arrogant over one small victory, but Crash just agrees with a sarcastic smile. His brother's condescending tone clearly gets under Verokin's skin. Verokin changes the subject, saying he's here to deliver an order. He's sending Crash on a mission to the Garrelak Mountains. He taunts his younger brother, offering to be his guardian. Crash realizes this is a test of his new strength and accepts the challenge. After all, he's more used to fighting than peace, and he'll find a way out of any trap. As Crash prepares to leave, Bianca asks where he's going. She agrees not to follow him, though her expression is filled with concern. Verokin fumes, calling it absurd to send a 13-year-old on such a mission. But Bianca steps forward, refusing to let Crash go alone. Crash's expression hardens as he defends her from his brother's insults. Verokin's face twists in rage, clearly not expecting this defiance. With a final glare, the older brother storms out of the hall. Crash turns to Bianca, patting her head and telling her she did well. He tells her not to worry and just asks her not to faint again. With a final promise to return, he heads off to face his mission alone. We're reminded of the world erosion, a phenomenon where reality itself is invaded. Crash and his brother's party stand in the Garrelak Mountains, a rank 3 erosion zone. The knights seem confident, believing this level of threat is easily handled. After all, they have Verokin, an advanced expert, leading the charge. The older brother calls out to Crash, his tone already dripping with condescension. He claims this is a chance for the lower-ranked Crash to gain some field experience. Crash plays the part of the eager student, though he's probably seen more action than this entire squad combined. But his true motive is far darker than simple training. He's here to test a new method for controlling the immense power he's been building. And as the first monster falls, his experiment has officially begun. The knights are quickly overwhelmed by the endless swarm of monsters. But Crash calmly explains the creature's attack pattern. One of the knights is impressed, asking if he's done this before. Crash plays it cool, saying it's his first time here. But his composure only infuriates Verokin. He remembers his own first mission, a terrifying failure. He can't understand how Crash is acting like a seasoned veteran. Crash seems to read his mind, telling him not to compare them. The casual disrespect sends Verokin into a silent rage. As the battle rages on, the tension between the brothers grows thicker. Verokin's mind races with a dark, hypothetical thought, a scenario that he can't seem to shake. What if Crash grows strong, and he becomes the family's new failure? The very idea fills him with a desperate, consuming rage. Crash interrupts his thoughts, pointing out they're near the core. The ground beneath them pulses with a dark, corrupted energy. He notes that the path seems clear, almost too easy. But that's exactly why he warns them to stay on high alert. His words send a chill through the other knights. Verokin snaps at them, telling them not to get rattled by a kid's warning. Verokin rallies the knights, but Crash knows they can handle this, because he needs to focus on his own, much darker mission. His eyes widen as he senses the raw power around him. Thanks to the grimoire, he can now see the world erosion energy, and all that's left is to absorb it directly into his body. He admits he's nervous as he begins to inhale the corrupted power. The sheer force of it immediately overwhelms his young body, and he violently coughs up blood from the strain. Verokin rushes to his side, but Crash brushes off the concern. He stares at his bloodied hand, knowing this is just the start of his ordeal. He knows the erosion energy is a deadly toxin, but he clenches his fist, ready to endure it all for this power. He lets the corrupted energy merge with his own aura, creating something entirely new. His eyes glow with a dark, dangerous power. The immense strain sends him stumbling back in agony. He stares at his bloodied hands, feeling the edge of insanity. But he knows it's time to use the secret technique he found. A technique left behind by a blind ancestor who found the library but couldn't read its secrets. So he left one final grimoire, a guide for those who followed. And now Crash will unleash that forgotten power. He focuses his mind, activating the forgotten technique, a hypersensory perception known as the sixth sense. Its range is small, barely extending beyond his own body, but it's enough to feel the rampage within him finally subside. The storm of corrupted energy begins to fade from his senses. He wipes away the blood, knowing this is only a temporary fix. As long as he keeps absorbing the erosion, the danger will remain, which means he still needs Bianca's Snowdoll curse to truly control it. But for this one moment, he's managed to stabilize the power he's taken. He feels like he's taken a new step, but his eyes widen in alarm, because his sixth sense is screaming that something is very, very wrong. He turns to find a massive, fleshy monster looming right behind him. Its face is eerily calm, its eyes closed in a strange slumber. But then they snap open, glowing with a terrifying red light. The creature attacks, its grotesque form overwhelming the knights. Verokin realizes this is the true core of the erosion zone, and the sight completely shatters his arrogant composure. The other knights are just as horrified by this unexpected boss fight. Crash stares back, his shock mixed with a grim resolve. This is a 4-star thousand-faced demon, and they've walked right into its lair. Verokin's voice rings out, calling for everyone to prepare for battle. He rallies his terrified knights, his sword glowing with a cold blue light. But that energy quickly begins to shift, transforming into a torrent of raw, untamed fire. He unleashes his signature skill, Ignis, becoming a human inferno. The other knights can only stare in awe at its destructive beauty. But Crash recognizes that fiery aura all too well. It's the same skill his brother once used to burn him. He stares at Verokin, the memory of that cruelty still fresh, and recalls just how completely unhinged his brother was in the past life. A memory of Verokin's taunt, asking what Crash has become, and Crash's chilling reply, hoping his brother hasn't changed at all. Back in the present, the thousand-faced demon unleashes its dark power, a horrifying curse that literally erases the faces of its victims. The knights are completely overwhelmed, unable to dodge the shadowy attacks. As one calls for a retreat, Crash charges past him into the fray. Verokin, not to be outdone, unleashes his own fiery assault. He soars through the air, a blazing inferno aimed at the monster. The demon roars as it's engulfed in the searing flames. Its massive body begins to burn and crumble under the intense heat. Verokin roars for his men not to give up. As the knights stare in awe at his power, inspired, they follow their leader's charge into the fray. Verokin smirks, wondering if Crash is watching his glorious moment. But the knights look around, fearing the boy has already fallen. Crash is fine. His eyes locked not on his brother, but on the demon. Verokin's smug expression falters for just a moment, because the thousand-faced demon is weeping tears of blood. Its body is covered in countless faces, all crying the same dark fluid. And one central face stares back, its empty eyes confirming this is anything but normal. Verokin's confidence shatters as he realizes just how bad this is. His fiery attacks are being nullified by the demon's shadowy power. He feels an impossible pressure radiating from the monster. He knows they have to end this now before it gets any worse. He rallies his knights, calling for an all-out assault. But even their aura-infused strikes are completely useless. He screams for them to attack before the demon can transform. He prepares to lead the charge once more. He berates his men for cowering in the face of this threat, but the knights stand frozen, their faces eerily blank. Verokin realizes the demon's curse is affecting them without any physical contact. He touches his face in horror, remembering a strange disturbance from earlier. The thousand-faced demon looms over him, its power absolute. The scene suddenly shifts to a memory of a dark and stormy night. A terrified young boy caught in the downpour knows this is bad. He falls to his knees, feeling an unseen force crushing the life from him. The boy is certain that he is about to die. A monstrous hand wreathed in dark purple energy reaches out in agony. The boy can only look up in despair, questioning why this is happening, and he wonders if this is truly how his life will end. A voice from his past taunts him for his weakness, reminding him how his sister had already surpassed him, a failure who was destined to die alone. As the monster's fist descends to crush him, he can only raise an arm in a futile defense, but the blow never lands on him, because a younger Crash has just pulled him to safety. Verokin looks up, dazed and confused. He sees his little brother smiling down at him. Crash explains he's been watching the battle from afar. He explains he pulled his brother from the demon's grasp, and points out that Verokin is too weak to even use his aura. With a smile, he asks if his brother is sure he doesn't need help. Verokin grits his teeth, his pride completely shattered. He angrily rejects the offer, refusing help from a fool. But a sudden jolt of fear runs through him. He asks how far they've gone, worried the demon is still close. Crash explains the erosion field has likely closed them in. The horrifying realization dawns on Verokin they're trapped. He curses their fate as Crash calls out to his brother. But Crash reveals he has an ultimate technique, one taught to him by his sister, Charlotte. Verokin is stunned, realizing this must be how he defeated Anix. He wonders if even the great Charlotte has a soft spot for her brother. He asks if that technique can really defeat the demon, and Crash's answer is a simple yes. He declares that if he's going to die here anyway, he'd rather go down fighting. He offers a hand, admitting he understands why his brother doesn't trust him, but he asks if Verokin at least trusts in the strength of their sister, Charlotte. Verokin reluctantly agrees, admitting that Charlotte is, after all, a genius. Crash warns him that if this fails, both of them are finished. A dark, confident smile spreads across his face, his plan now set in motion. Crash promises himself that this time, he won't fail. The two brothers hide in the bushes as the demon draws near. He asks Verokin to prepare his Ignis skill, and his brother complies. With his own sword drawn, Crash declares it's time to begin. He plants his feet firmly on the rain-soaked ground, and unleashes a torrent of brilliant blue aura. His eyes close as he focuses all of his will into the blade. Verokin can only stare, completely stunned by this display. Crash swings his sword, channeling the immense energy. His brother is in awe of his unbelievable focus and power. Verokin marvels at an aura so impossibly clear and pure. He can't believe the failure he once scorned is wielding a power he could never master. Crash snaps him out of his trance, telling him to use his Ignis skill now. The older brother hesitantly summons a ball of fire in his hand, and at Crash's command, he sends it flowing onto the glowing blue blade. Crash now wields a sword wreathed in a torrent of elemental power. The combined energy hums, ready to be unleashed. He turns to his brother, asking if there's a problem with the plan. Virokin can only look away, admitting it seems Crash won't need his backup. His eyes betray a storm of shock, jealousy, and utter disbelief. Virokin realizes the flame on that sword burns even hotter than his own. He remembers how he lost all his men and barely escaped this very monster. But if Crash succeeds where he failed, it would mean he's weaker than the family's so-called failure. With a single decisive strike, Crash brings the flaming sword down. Virokin can only watch, his face a mask of pure disbelief. The world erupts in a torrent of searing flame, and when the light fades, the rain has stopped. A voice calls out to him, calm and clear. It's Crash, who turns back and declares the job is done. Virokin can't believe the monster was defeated so easily. His hand tightens on his sword, his jealousy boiling over. And with a scream of pure rage, he decides to kill his brother. He lunges forward, but Crash parries the fiery strike. Virokin's eyes widen in confusion. He questions why his Ignis skill is suddenly failing him. Crash thanks him for never changing, his face a mask of manic glee. Because his brother's predictable rage just met the unlocked conditions. By lending his power and shattering his pride, Virokin's skill was now forfeit. And in the background, the thousand-faced demon still smolders. Crash stands over his defeated brother, his sword planted in the dirt. He admits that he once just wanted to get along with his family, but a memory surfaces of his brother's cold rejection, a constant hostility that made any connection impossible. He pins Virokin down, admitting he still hoped for acceptance. But now he realizes that was never an option for his brother. He asks Virokin if the pain is familiar. Reminding him of the day he burned Crash's own body, he watches impassively as his brother writhes on the ground. A cold, calculated revenge for a lifetime of cruelty. Crash stands alone amidst the rocky aftermath of the battle. He looks up at the sky, noting the irony of such a beautiful day. Back at the Valheim estate, news of the tragedy spreads like wildfire. The mission was a rank 5 disaster, far beyond what they were prepared for. And the official story is that Virokin sacrificed himself to save his brother. A servant cries out in disbelief that only the failure survived. But the head butler insists they honor Virokin's noble sacrifice. As Crash walks away, he's told not to waste his brother's death. He knows the fabricated story means he's free from all suspicion. And thanks to his brother's sacrifice, the mission was a huge success. Crash reflects on his new power, having fully adapted to the extreme blood immersion. He knows his sixth sense can control the resulting rampage, and by combining that power with his brother's Ignis skill, he's created a devastating black flame. A lovely parting gift. With this new trump card, he heads to the main house for a meeting. He's been summoned for an investigation into the corrupted lands, but he already knows the truth behind the strange phenomena. It's the work of the World Invader and its servants, the Undying. A woman greets him, introducing herself as Saphira, an investigator. But Crash's eyes are drawn to the black star on her neck. Crash addresses the investigator, calling her by her true title, Undying. He offers her a deal she can't refuse. He'll erase her immortality. But her sinister smile reveals she knows more than she should, asking if he's the regressor. Her eyes glow with a dark power as she admits she was looking for someone else. And it seems destiny has sent her to the wrong person. A memory surfaces of another Undying. Crimson Garden. August, chained and helpless, Crash recalls how in his past life, he failed to steal this man's immortality. A group of women discuss how the Undying's power is now limited. One explains his body was cursed, leaving him unable to move. But another scoffs, reminding her of the hell he put them all through. The memory shows Sigrun confronting another woman, telling her not to act so righteous. A younger party member smiles, relieved that the Undying is dealt with. Arthur's eye reflects the battered Crash as he calls it a shame. Crash admits with a weak smile that he couldn't steal the immortality. Arthur states that even for him, that skill would be impossible to take, because the unlock condition was to be stronger than the Undying himself. Back in the present, Crash asks Saphira what makes her so sure he's a regressor. She smirks, explaining that only a regressor would have the gall to make such a deal. She mocks his claim, calling it a transparent lie from someone trapped in time. But Crash unleashes his power, insisting that it is no lie at all. He unleashes Blackhood, questioning if his skill can truly steal the curse of immortality. But Saphira clenches her fist, revealing a centuries-long plan. She's been raising the erosion's power just to find someone who could finally kill her. And now that he's here, she asks for his condition. Crash explains that his skill only works if he's stronger than his target. A sinister smile spreads across her face as she offers to make him her apprentice. Her eyes glow with a chilling intensity as she accepts the deal. She reveals her true name, Crimson Garden August, and vows to make him the strongest man alive. The sheer force of August's projected aura sends Crash stumbling back in shock. He knows August commanded a power that could rival even Arthur, and he decides that even if it means borrowing an invader's strength, he will save this world. But a grim realization hits him. Since skills are unique, Arthur must have regression again. Which means if this world falls, Crash will be erased along with it. He turns to his new master, cheekily calling her Crim. August's eye narrows, questioning the new nickname. A sinister smile spreads across her face as she says his name, and then grabs his head, insisting he call her Master. With that settled, she turns to leave the room. Crash asks if she doesn't live here, but she hasn't been back in years. She tells him his mother has requested his presence. Crash is stunned, wondering why she's suddenly interested in him now. The hooded woman confirms the summons, and adds that his father, the family head, also wishes to see him. Crash knows his father has ascended to a semi-divine state. He's ordered to remain at the main estate until his father's return. But Crash has his own priorities and can't afford to waste time here. So he simply turns to leave, promising to return when summoned directly. A figure in a window smiles, thinking he'll come to her on his own. And with that, Crash departs from the main estate. Their journey takes them to a bustling coastal city. Leaving the Valheim estate far behind them, Crash stretches out in the carriage, finally free from his family's grasp. But his peace is shattered by his new master demanding to be let in. He points out that her current crimson bird form is a bit too conspicuous. August simply shifts her form, becoming a common black crow. He quips that the color matches her soul, earning a sarcastic reply. When asked about her real body, she reminds him it's still immobilized. Crash keeps a crucial secret. He's not the true regressor, just a copy. And with that, their carriage finally arrives at its destination. August gives him one last piece of advice before they part. A young girl in a chick onesie looks up in confusion. She welcomes Crash back, holding a book to her chest. He smiles, telling her he kept his promise to return. Ariad rushes out to greet him as Crash asks for an update. The butler hands him a letter from the alchemist, Dan for Lion. It confirms the cure is ready, complete with a kiss mark. He instructs Ariad to treat the alchemist as a benefactor. The butler then mentions that Bianca has been very worried about him. She was apparently ready to travel all the way to the main estate to see him. A sudden thought crosses Crash's mind. He realizes he hasn't checked the lock on Bianca's curse in a while, and a system window confirms the first condition has been met. Crash is stunned to see that the lock has finally been released.